Hello and welcome to Preps Overtime, presented by Tom Dinsdale. I'm Jack Sheard. With me is Bob Hamer. And Bob, we're about a month into the basketball season for Preps, and we've got some city teams that are, kind of in the middle of the pack, and one that's still undefeated.
They're all not doing too bad at all. We'll start with Central Catholic because they are undefeated at 9-0, and they're rated number 5 in Class C1 by the Omaha World Herald. They've gotten off to a great start. Last year they got second in the Class C2. They're probably, I think, better this year, but they're up to C1, so that'll be tough when it comes time for the playoffs later on. But they're playing really well. They got some good players. A couple of the Fahey boys, Turner and Spencer, really kind of lead that team. Turner is an outstanding point guard, and Spencer is one of the best shooters around. And then they've also, Tommy Howard inside has really come on and improved a lot, and that's something they probably didn't have that inside presence a year ago.
There's some teams in C1. Obviously, if CC is ranked 5th and they're 9-0, some teams that Hastings is a C1 team. Pierce, are they pretty strong?
They appear to be. Of course, I haven't seen them yet. Mm-hmm. Pierce did beat St. Cecilia during the holiday tournaments. And St. Cecilia is rated number 4 now in C1. I know they're a very good team, defending state champion in C1. So, yeah, there's lots of good teams in the area in C1 and into the state, because you're looking at, like, St. Paul is unbeaten, and they're not in the top 10 yet. There hasn't been room for them yet. They might get there eventually. Their best win so far probably against Loop City, a rated team in C2, another very good area team.
A lot of these C1 and C2, and we talked about it during the football season and the volleyball season, these C1 and C2 schools bounce back and forth in classes, both for themselves from year to year, a lot of them, and their schedules filled with teams from both C1 and C2, so they get to play a lot of the top-ranked teams maybe in a different class. You mentioned St. Paul beating Loop City from C2. Which of these teams do you think that CC is going to play maybe poses the biggest threat or their first potential loss?
Well, probably have St. Cecilia possibly in the conference tournament toward the end of the month. I kind of think, looking at their schedule, they might still be unbeaten at that time, but if they go up against St. Cecilia, that's a very tough game. Or Fremont Bergen is in that conference tournament, so that's another one. Fremont is number 1 in Class C2. They
still have that real good kid?
No, he went on. He's gone to Iowa State. So.
Yeah, so not quite the threat that Fremont Bergen was last year, but still a threat.
Definitely. They've rebounded well from lost a lot of seniors, but they're back up there too.
Now, looking at the other city schools, Grand Island Senior High, young team this year, right?
Very young. They've got 3 seniors, or 4 and 5 on the year, probably about where you would expect them to be at this point. Coach Dave Oman says they're going to get better and better as the season goes along, and they probably will, playing all those sophomores. They play several sophomores every game. Some of them even start. They just need a little time to put things together. And Class A, I'm not saying they're going to win the state championship, but Class A is wide open this year. There's no big favorites at this point. So who knows what might happen if they can get down to state and maybe win a game or so, and that would be great for them.
You mentioned this about these kids at senior high, good athletes. I mean, just good athletes, know how to win games. They're getting some good state in all sports, good experience just across the board. And I was talking to one of the fathers, one in particular, father of one of these sophomores you're talking about.
Yes.
These are the first 5 games, I think, that these sophomores have lost together.
If you say so, that's probably true.
I think they, some of them were together in junior high or middle school and had always won, and they were undefeated last year as freshmen. And so they might struggle here in their first year, full year as varsity, but I think, and you can back me up on this, they're going to be good in the next couple of years.
There's no question about that. When you're sophomores, you're playing against seniors. That's just a difference in experience and a difference in, a lot of times, in just physical development. So yeah, they're gonna get better and better, and they're gonna be a team to watch out for in the next year or 2.
And even by the end of this season, that experience, they could be a team. The record might not show it, but by the end of the season, in the district time, could be somebody to watch.
And Coach Oman knows how to get them ready for districts, so we'll see what happens there.
What about Northwest? They're 4-2, is that correct?
That's correct. They're off to a nice start under new coach Ryan Rathke. They won their first 4 games, which was a nice accomplishment. Then they had their own tournament, and they got beat by a very good team from South Dakota, and then they got beat by Sydney, and Sydney is much improved. Sydney's only losses have come to Beatrice and Chadron, 2 unbeaten teams. So and Northwest played pretty well against Sydney, just didn't quite have enough offense to win that game. But they're going to keep getting better too, I believe. Rathke, it's instilled in his system. They're still not shooting the ball extremely well, but I think they'll get better as the season goes along.
Another city school maybe had the best, well, they're probably the most endurance-ready school, team that can play the longest for sure, is Coach Lloyd Wagnitz's Heartland Lutheran team.
They could probably play for 77 hours.
77 minutes and 77 seconds.
Yeah, and they're off to a 5-3 start, and 2 of those losses to a very good Giltner team. So, and Coach Wagnitz really, he told me before the season he thought they could have a winning record this season and would be disappointed if they didn't. And they've beaten most of the teams they should beat so far. So they're off to a good start. They've got Hampton coming up on Tuesday, which is a very tough matchup, and we'll have to see how that comes out.
Across the rest of the Central Nebraska coverage area for the Independent, any other teams that are sticking out to you right now?
Well, I just mentioned Hampton. They're undefeated in class, rated number 3 in Class D2. They have a big game Friday night against D1 number 3, Giltner. Both teams are unbeaten. 2 excellent teams that kind of do things differently. Giltner likes to run. They score more points. Hampton slows things down. Very good defensive team. Their opponents are only scoring 30 points a game against Hampton. So we'll see who can control the pace will probably determine the outcome of that game. I think Giltner, I saw them play last night. I think they probably have better athletes, but Hampton is so good with their system. Coach Jerry Eichhoff has won 657 games now. He knows how to coach the system he wants.
Just rattle those stats off. Just how many games have I won?
I don't think you've won any, Jack.
That's probably right. That's 2 stats in a row you got right. I believe Ravenna, again, they've reloaded, and they're 7-1.
They're 7-1. They're only lost to Central Catholic, so they've had a great start. They've got some challenges coming up, certainly. They have to play St. Paul down the road and some of those Loup Platte teams. But they seem to have reloaded quite nicely. They lost a lot of seniors from last year, and they're still 7-1, ranked number 2 in C2 right now. So Coach Paul Baronic always does a great job there. And as he says, he's gotten really smart over the years as he's gotten better talent. That's made him smarter. And so he looks really smart now.
Well, it's strange to think we're this far along in the season with football just getting over at the college level. But we are about halfway done almost. So we'll continue to monitor how these teams do for the rest of the season. And we'll talk again, Bob.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on Preps HQ Overtime. Have a great week.